Well, guys, after all of the coverage of Trump's first day in office, I think we could use a bit of a palate cleanser, don't you think? So why don't we delve into the YouTube channel with the amazing name, Conservative Vibes. It is an up-and-coming YouTube channel. It's only been around for a few months now, and yet it's already got 100,000 subscribers, and its videos regularly pull over 1 million views. So when I talk about how fucked the left is algorithmically, because, you know, progressive content gets a massively low amount of engagement proportional to its viewership, this is a very good example of that. No. It's not YouTube's fault. It's not YouTube's fault. These videos do well because the viewers support it immensely. This video has 50,000 likes, okay? You guys gotta bring out the support like conservatives do. They earned the power they have. They dominated these algorithms the old-fashioned way, with immense amounts of grassroots support, especially the free kinds of likes and comments. You do that for me, and do it for your other favorite content creators in the left too, not just for me. You gotta do it for everybody that you support. It's a big part of how the conservatives got to where they are, if you're not, you know, aware of that. But regardless, we're gonna be looking into a video called Only Conservatives Will Laugh at This Offensive, quote-unquote, comedian. Quinn compilation. So it is literally a guy reacting to comedy stand-up skits. So we are going to be mainlining cringe, like straight into the bloodstream with this one. But what I really want to talk about with this is how often conservatives like to say, "Why are you so offended at what that guy said? It's just a joke." Now, that has always perplexed me, because I'm a big fan of comedy. In fact, George Carlin is my favorite comedian. His bit about stuff is probably it lives in my head rent-free. Like, every time I have to deal with any amount of stuff, like getting my stuff from the car to my house or my house to the car, like anytime it's like, make sure my keys, wallet, god damn it. And I think about the George Carlin bit about how life is just about accumulating stuff and finding a place to keep your stuff and regularly transporting your stuff from place to place, but it's all about stuff and other people's stuff is shit. I love that comedy bit, okay? And do you want to know why it's funny? Do you want to know why it's so fucking funny? Because it's true. It's funny because it's true. When George Carlin would go on a screaming rant about how NIMBYs, not in my backyard, don't want to have public funded things like prisons or rehabilitation centers in their areas, he made fun of NIMBYs. His stand-up was not just him going up there and saying some stupid random bullshit that wasn't supposed to be taken seriously. You laugh and then you never think about it again. George Carlin was funny because he found a creative and abrasive, on-brand way to say true things. The punchlines hit because they were true. Let's fast forward to Dave Chappelle. One of the most legendary comedians of all time. Nowadays, he makes, for the most part it seems, lazy, anti-woke humor about how, isn't it crazy how they think there's more than 2 genders? I'm pretty sure that's like half his stand-up now. Back in the day, though, Dave Chappelle was legendarily good with his humor. And yes, he definitely leaned heavier into doing, like, really out-there skits that were just, like, ridiculous, you know? When he did stand-up, more often than not, people stood up, cheering and clapping his best jokes, his best bits, when he was trying to persuade the audience or make an argument to the audience in a comedic manner. And the audience went, "That's fucking true." And they laughed, they clapped, and they stood up and they cheered. And those are the moments that are the most memorable when I watch a comedian, a stand-up, like a famous, beloved stand-up comic, right? The fact that they said true things, and they spoke truth to power, or they just made valid observations of the human condition, and found a creative, interesting, and oftentimes, and this is a very important aspect of comedy, surprising or shocking way to express it. It feels as though the legend of these comedians has only been carried on, for the most part, by the shocking aspect. If you've shocked people with what you've said, then that's comedy. Now, when a comedian goes on stage to talk about how trans people are cringe and awful, and that's like the basis of the joke. When people are laughing, they're laughing because they think it's true. And then when you call out the argument being made by these quote-unquote jokes, and they are jokes, but they're not meant to be taken seriously just because they're jokes. It doesn't mean they aren't serious. When you analyze them, or you try to actually counter the argument that they make with their joke, the instant reply isn't an actual defense of their position, which they clearly indicated with their joke. It's instead falling back on the fact that all they did was make a joke. Oh, what? I was just joking. It's like, the only way that joke is funny is if you're racist. How many times have you had that exact thought pass through your head? The only way you find that joke funny is if you're racist. The only way you find that joke funny is if you're transphobic. I'm not interested in a conversation about whether or not what you said was a joke. I know it was a joke. I know I'm supposed to be racist and find what you said funny, but I'm not, and I'd like to argue about why you think the thing the joke is based on. But they claim that this is being offended by comedy, right? And maybe it is. Maybe it is. I mean, it is literally being offended. And I guess you could call it comedy, but the comedy is for people who don't like those particular groups. So let's go ahead and watch this. A conservative comedian. Maybe this guy's going to be not super offensive. Maybe he doesn't hate any particular groups, and he can make comedy about things just from a sort of conservative perspective, right? Like, talking about how, isn't it crazy how nowadays, every time you go in somewhere, you buy something, and they ask you for your phone number, or ask you if you have an account with their store, for some sort of, like, and it'd be a dumb bit, because obviously if you do, like, sign up with that stuff, you tend to get, like, discounts when you come back to those stores, but regardless, like, yeah, like, I'm sure you could do, like, a non-racist, conservative, like, angled comedy bit. Like, it can be done, so let's see if it can be. Let's see if this ends up being that. Let's see how long we can go without being offended.
People love to get offended. That's why I love my gardener, Bernardo, because he doesn't get offended like white people do. Like, if I assumed he liked tequila, my sister would be like, why? Because he's Mexican. But Bernardo would be like, why? You got some? The last thing on his mind is racism. I asked him if he deals with any bigotry. He said, nah, only little trees. Nothing phases him. I could be like, Bernardo, the apocalypse is coming. He'd be like, the what? The world is ending. He'd be like, oh. So, would you pay me now or no?
I am just curious to... Okay. I'm curious to see what the commentators' thoughts are on the comedy bit. That wasn't really all that offensive, to be honest with you. But the joke there is that you find a white guy doing a Mexican accent, like an impression of, like, a Mexican gardener, funny. Like... You think, like, the joke is that a white guy is doing an impression of the Mexican gardener that works for him. So, you know, just kind of weak sauce. Not really, didn't really even, like, usually, like, an accent like that might even get, a crack a smile out of me. If it's, like, if they say something funny enough with it. But it just, there wasn't really much to work with there. Like, the accent could have been used to say something funny, and I would have cracked a smile, but that he just didn't hit any notes that get me. And listen, guys, to be very clear, I like offensive humor. Okay, this is what I consider good offensive humor. The kind where the words on surface level are offensive. Maybe it includes the use of some not so politically correct language. But if you actually analyze the meaning of the joke, it's actually arguably progressive. That's the kind of edgy humor that I like. The kind that offends, like, bitchy people that cannot see anywhere beyond the surface level words of a joke. The problem is conservatives only see the surface level words of a joke and leave it at that willingly. But with the people I like to offend with humor, or I like to see offended with humor, are the people who literally cannot recognize a progressive position behind a very thin layer of somewhat offensive language. Those are the people that I like to see offended. And those are the types of jokes that I think are good. Is when the joke is literally that you recognize what was said was wrong, and the way that it is said with such shamelessness and confidence that it's actually funny, that's when it's good. Like, South Park is actually pretty good at that. And South Park's taken a lot of L's, don't get me wrong, but like, South Park is pretty good at that type of humor. Anyway, let's watch.
This comedian is named Quinn. Dare I say he is an anti-woke comedian. Link to his channel and tour dates in the description down below.
If you're against guns, consider this. Gun violence kills.
It is actually insane how easy it is to grift on YouTube as a conservative. This guy 2 weeks ago was a nobody. Now he is like probably on the verge of making 6 figures per year, and all he does is sit here and watch TikTok clips of conservative comedians. And he's at 100K subs after a few weeks of doing this. This is the landscape of media that we live in. I'm not gonna lie, I am immensely jealous. It took me 5 years to earn that. This guy earned it in a couple weeks, making this content. That's where the standards are. That's how hard, like, it's difficult, man. It's hard to put in as much work as I do and to see people just, like, skate into a silver play button on the right. It's just, and then, of course, they play the victim the whole time. Not only are they, like, this guy will probably say something along the lines of, like, the left is going to try to silence me at some point in this video. You know he will.
30,000 people each year. So they should take away our guns, right?
But Zan, you didn't sell out? That is true. That is true. I have no one to blame but myself for not selling out. That's fair.
Car crashes kill 55,000. Should they take away our Asians?
Always with the little twists at the end. There's a cardinal rule in comedy if you're making fun of races. You have to make fun of all of them. Everybody gets some. White, Asian, black, Latino, you name it.
It's no secret that some Asian people have trouble with the letter L. I was talking politics with a Chinese guy, and he was like, what do you think of this erection?
Okay, that's solid. Okay, because erection, that's solid. Okay, the only thing is, though, isn't it just, like, I'm pretty sure it's just China where people, like, and it's not even, like, all of China. It's just part of China, like the main population of China. The accent can't say, or is it Japanese accents where people have a hard time pronouncing L's when they start learning English? It's Japanese and mainland China, not counting, like, Tibet, I assume, and, like, the lands that China has like imperially conquered. And Japanese is the reverse. It's mostly Japan. Yeah. Okay. Whatever. Regardless. Obviously, not all Asian cultures speak languages in which the language barrier crosses over, but I can see where he's going there with the joke. You know, I can see where he's going with it.
So that's a hard one. Let's say you call a white person, might sound something like this.
Hello, please leave a message after the tone.
Let's say you call a Mexican person, might sound something like this.
I used to work at an auto body shop, and there's always Mexican music playing, and we used to play a game of when the trumpet would come in.
Let's say you call a black person, might sound like this.
I think the joke is that black people can't afford a phone plan, I guess. So, okay. Yeah, that's the joke. Okay.
Phone's been disconnected. Is that the joke? I don't know.
This is why I left California. I couldn't go to a Walmart without getting harassed. Like, hey, excuse me, can I get some money? Huh? Can you give me something to eat? I was like, you know what? Get a job, okay? Have some self-respect. And don't give me the whole, whoa, that's not how you talk to your wife.
Sometimes you can sound racist accidentally. For example, my Spanish isn't great, but I have...
Okay, I will say that joke is kind of funny. If like, the joke is that homeless people are bad, right? And so at first you're supposed to be like, okay, yeah, so like that's how you would talk to a homeless person, obviously. Yeah, homeless people are awful. They're the worst. Cool. And then the reveal is that's how he talks to his wife. And it's like, ha, you'd never actually talk to her like that, but man, if only you could. That's the joke there.
I have a house that I rent out to a big Mexican family. And one time they called me because they have roaches. So I called a local Mexican-owned pest control company, Spanish speakers. And I said, ¿Puedes rociar para mexicanos? Which apparently means, can you spray for Mexicans? Some words aren't even racist, but you still can't.
I hope the joke there is that he Googled how to say, can you spray the house? And he Googled in Mexican instead of in Spanish. And so it included that in his search. And so he asked basically, like it translated Google. I hope the joke there is that it was bad Google Translate that made him say something. Like the joke is that like he didn't know Spanish, so he used Google Translate and it made him say something embarrassing. I assume that's the joke. I'm trying to pick apart like the meaning here. So far, none of his comedy here has really been all that like offensive. So much of conservative like oh God, excuse me, Monster Energy. Am I right? So much of conservative rhetoric about like offensive comedy, like 90% of the comedy isn't even offensive. Like maybe I'm not like a super hyper progressive guy compared to most or something. I don't know, but like if this is supposed to be like what offends liberals, I promise you it really doesn't. The most you might really see is like the impressions might trigger some people, I guess, but outside of that, I guess the line about like black people not being able to afford a phone plan might offend some people, but like at that point you could argue the point of the joke is acknowledging like systemic bias and socioeconomic disparities between demographics in this country. Like I don't know, I don't really, it's not that offensive. It's like, get ready for the most offensive comedy special you've ever seen, and it's just a guy doing like an impression of a Mexican gardener. It's like, okay, I mean, he could have just gone up on stage and screamed the N-word if that was the goal, was to offend. I mean,
Can't say them. I'll give you an example. If you react, you're a actor. Okay. If you research, you're a
searcher.
Okay.
He stole this joke from Bo Burnham. Oh man, you know what's funny as fuck? You know how like Amy Schumer had like Giga investigations done on her for every time she may have stolen a joke, and I think she probably stole a bunch of jokes, to be honest, based on like what I've seen. It's funny how no one's noticed this guy's done it. Bo Burnham. Here's the
We'll do a racial joke about.
So here's the joke that this guy stole. That is good offensive comedy. Getting a whole crowd of white people to yell the N-word. And it's still woke. Or it's not like bigoted, I should say. It's not unacceptable. It's not problematic. It's funny as fuck. So yeah, that's where the thing that this guy is, he's about to get them to say retard.
Okay, if you renege, you're a we should have a Mexican president.
Wait, no, he just straight up, he stole the joke fully. Like, and he did it worse. He did it worse. Like, you could see it coming. Like, what? The reason why the salt and vinegar thing was funny is because no one sees it coming because it's and they just, like, automatically, they finish it. That was awful. That was an awful retooling of a stolen joke. You know what I love about this? This video was supposed to be, liberals will get offended. And now it's, oh, I recognized a stolen joke. And not only was it a stolen joke, but he butchered the joke. How much of this comedy, like these comedy bits, do you think are even original? Now that we know he's stolen from Bo Burnham.
And I look at my gardener, he's the hardest worker I've ever met. I like
Bernardo.
to ask his opinion on things. I was like, Bernardo, what do you think about inflation? Food's out of control. No one should go to sleep hungry. He was like, then stay up. Work a night shift or something.
I think he was married to a Mexican for a while, so his Latino accent is actually spot on.
What are you, man? Can I ask?
Oh, yeah, sure, Indian.
His Latino accent is spot on. No, it's not. The funniest aspect of his fake Mexican accent is that it is not spot on. That is why it has like the slightest inkling of funny to it. Yeah, I don't know about that one, Chief.
Indian. Oh, well. Did I say that right? Mexican, right? A little bit?
Mexican, Japanese.
Mexican what?
Japanese.
Mexican and Japanese. That's got to be a weird accent, right? Coleslaw! What's going on with you, sister? You're something, huh? Filipino. Oh, all right. What Kaiser do you work at? What's your name, ma'am? May I ask your number?
I don't know what stereotype that's based off of. I know a lot of Filipino people, and I don't know, like Kaiser rolls, like a bread factory. Chad, explain it. Chad, I'm not racist enough to get that one. Help. Isn't it a stereotype of their nurses or something? Kaiser Permanente Healthcare. Oh, okay, yeah, all right, yeah, because working in medicine. All right. I mean, I guess when you think about it enough, the joke is that, like, people from the Philippines help sick people. Not really an insult, so I don't really know what the offense is there.
Angelica, very nice. What's that?
Angelica.
Sorry, okay, got it. It's the same name. I got no problem with liberals. My problem is libtards.
Yeah.
They'll say, like, why do you need a gun? Because I live in a bad neighborhood.
Okay. To be fair, I also call people who hate guns libtards.
Okay? Not fantasy land. That's the difference between me and a libtard. Like, if someone broke into my house, I'd be like, hey, put your hands up. A libtard would be like, hey, put your mask on.
That's a good fucking joke! Do you want to know why it's a good joke? Because it's fucking true. Because I have met progressives in my own community that are so afraid. They will literally say out loud to me that they think they will kill themselves if they buy a gun. It's like, you guys know that's a meme in conservative communities, right? Like, they make memes out of, like, collages of you guys posting that exact, like, sentiment about how it's like, these people claim they're gonna do a revolution, but they refuse to buy guns because they think they'll kill themselves with them. Like, I've encountered those people. I've encountered people, a lot of European and Australian and some Canadian, but Canada's much less cringe about guns. Mostly it's Australians, I've noticed, who are, like, massively libtarded about guns. Immensely so. Holy shit, it's the Australians that trigger me on gun stuff the most. I don't know why. I think it's because, like, they banned guns, like, a century ago, and they've had, like, almost no gun violence since then, so they're, like, really high and mighty about it, and they think that America is analogous. Probably something along those lines.
Black people sound cooler because everything's just shorter, right? Right? Like, a white person will be like, all right. Black person? Right? No.
Man. You know what? I think I recognize another kind of stolen joke. I'm not 100% sure, but I think this is also a stolen joke. Let me see if I can find where I think I originally heard the base of that joke, and we can decide if he also yoinked this one. I think Shane Gillis was the original joke guy. Yeah, here it is. The day white people stopped being cool. It reminds me of this joke. I almost wonder if the joke was stolen from this guy.
Picks for the next 4 years. Just box out hard as hell. White people used to be cool in America. Long time ago, dude. The height of white people being cool was us going, we're like, man. That was as cool as we got. We're like, man, see, man. And then the day white people stopped being cool, it was Jackie Robinson's first game. You can look it up, dude. You can find it. You can find the radio call from that game online. You can hear the exact moment white people stopped being cool. You can hear the announcers. They still got that like, man. Welcome to Chicago, where the White Sox take on the Brooklyn Dodgers. And we all had cool white nicknames. Like, up at the mound is Old Curly. He's a 47-year-old alcoholic. He's the greatest athlete alive. Runs a 6-second 40-yard dash. Fastest man alive, they say. Then it happened, dude.
Isn't it nice to, like, take a break and watch a real comedian?
Runs a 6-second 40-yard dash. Fastest man alive, they say. Then it happened, dude. And Jackie came up to the plate. You can hear the announcers like, man. Just set picks for the next.
I don't know. It reminds me what he just said. What this guy in the conservative comedy sketch said it almost makes me think the joke was stolen from the clip we just saw.
Like if someone broke into my house, I'd be like, hey, put your hands up.
Not this
A
one.
libtard would
Next
be like,
one.
hey, put your mask on. Black people sound cooler because everything's just shorter, right? Right? Like a white person will be like, all right, all right. Black person? Right. No.
That was just the funny thing there is that he expected that his stereotype would work out for him, and it didn't. The joke is there that he failed at doing a racism in a way when you really think about it.
You look black from up here. I should have known he's got a golf hat on. I've never had that happen before. You know it's aight, right?
The guy on the right making his own jokes is uber cringe. Well, he's the guy who's like made this channel. It's called Conservative Vibes is his name.
Let's listen to this.
This channel has come about in the last... How old is the channel? It's about 6 months old. And in the last... I think ever since Trump got elected. Yeah, ever since about 4 months ago when Trump got elected, he's been pulling close to 1 million views per video. And especially since Trump's inauguration, he's pulling millions of views per video in some cases. He's got 103K subs. Listen, guys, I've told you 1 million times. Took 5 years and thousands of videos to get that silver play button right there, and that is the reality of being a progressive content creator on the internet. And believe me, that's no secret. The right brags about this constantly. They suggest that the disparity in success and reach is just a factor of who's in the right and who's in the wrong. The correct side always wins after all, right? And the wrong side, the left, is losing. And that's kind of how they operate mentally. I've noticed that a lot. 1 million views just to sit on the side and laugh like a moron. Yep. It is that easy. It is that easy. And yet, I keep on the grind for you guys, despite watching these horrible monsters make immense amounts of success on fractions of the work. It really is just like I wish I could transmit the vibe that it gives me to you guys so you could feel it, because it's just, oh man. I think that the core of this segment, the main focus, should be at the way that conservatives try to build culture around being conservative. The more offensive you can be to trigger the liberals, the greater it is. Like that is what it is all centered around, triggering the left. Any conservative content you find online isn't about educating you about the conservative worldview, because the conservative worldview is just hating the left and hating the groups the left advocates for in terms of like minorities and whatnot. And so there's really not much there other than clickbait, lefty, woke, cringe compilation type content. Yeah. As a video essayist, I feel it, man. Just more for video essayists that yap about wokeness, Lamau. I wonder what Jeff Dunham's up to. I know he has been a slimy piece of gunk under a public bench since day one, except for Peanut. If they're paying to win, then why not play their game to beat them? Huh? And it's always flopping back and forth. They don't believe in anything. They really don't. Yeah. One day they might be pro-trans. The next it's all about how trans people are the evil enemy. It's whatever Trump says, they follow. And it's gotten to the point now where, like, the normies who aren't even bought into the MAGA cult like that are willing to jump on board because it seems like everybody else is too. So it's just common sense. Follow the bandwagon. It's common sense. Do what everyone else is doing. The land of individuality, people. Anyway, if you guys enjoyed this segment, if you found it entertaining or educational, then please consider leaving a like and a comment. Every single thumbs up and comment goes a very long way to boost my channel in the algorithm and helps immensely. Remember, we are fighting an uphill battle. The right has dominated every single big tech platform, which is where everyone gets their news now. Over 50% of adults, mind you. They've dominated it. They own these platforms. In some cases, literally. The only way to counter this is to game the very algorithms that we are forced to be subjected to. If you like my content, leave a like, leave a comment. Obviously, donations and financial support are always appreciated and helpful, but keep in mind, they don't do anything about algorithms, okay? You don't need to donate, and you don't need to, like, cut money out of your own pocket. But hitting that like button and leaving a comment on new videos does an immense service to help, and I really appreciate it. And if you do it for other content creators in the left as well, they will appreciate it too, and be the change you want to see. You may witness over the next few years, not just because of you, but because you played your part and others did too, a significant rise in progressive sentiment in America, particularly from the internet, over the next 4 years. That is our goal. That is what we need to do. This is not a battle that'll be fought in the real world. I don't know I know that it sounds LARPy, but at this point, I think we can all agree that, like, Joe Rogan probably played one of the biggest roles in winning Trump the election of any individual. Logan Paul, you know who the guests were at the inauguration? Logan Paul and Jake Paul, Theo Vaughn, the second biggest podcaster, Joe Rogan, the second biggest podcaster, or the biggest podcaster, and Conor McGregor. Those 5 were sitting together at the Trump inauguration in the crowd. These are people whose prominence primarily came about because of internet fame. Like, this is where the world of politics is now, is the internet. So we have to counter it. With that in mind, I appreciate it when you guys do your part to help me do my part. It really does help. And of course, be sure to subscribe and ring the bell icon if you want to see more from me in the future. Follow my social medias, linked down below in the description if you want to see stuff from me on other platforms. And finally, like I said before, if you feel like it and you want to help support the channel to keep the lights on and a roof above my head here at the Xander Hall studio, then consider donating, subscribing, or gifting a sub on my website, xanderhall.com/live, or support me through YouTube, Twitch, Streamlabs, Stream Elements, Patreon, or buy some merch through the Streamlabs link down below in the description. Regardless of how you support the channel, though, thank you all so much for watching, and as always, have a good one.